Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Ace Comic-Con. Hey! Lovely of everybody to be here this morning. We're having a good time talking to some people who are making our modern myth that we love dearly so much and whatnot. But before we go anywhere, a little background on me. My name's Kevin Smith. How are you? The only reason I'm up here today is because I'm a big fan of all this stuff and have been going back for a couple centuries at this point. So much so that when I was a kid in the 80s, I collected the Vision and the Scarlet Witch miniseries. It was one of my favorite. It was actually the first comic book I ever bagged and boarded because I cared about the relationship so much. It meant something to me. I was a fat kid. And so here's this woman who fell in love with somebody who was a little different. So it gave me hope. A story of a woman with unbelievable powers and her battery-operated boyfriend. That is something that always stuck with me. And I remember, as they started making comic book movies, I was like, they'll never get around to that. They'll never get around to one of my favorite stories in comic books. But they did, man. They slowly layered it in. I remember when they introduced Scarlet Witch in the Avengers, and there's one moment where Age of Ultron, everything's going to hell. All of a sudden, Vision comes in and grabs her in the midst of everything, and I grabbed my wife's arm in the middle of the screening. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna fuck. And my wife was like, you care about this too much. I was like, I'm deeply invested. So slowly, they didn't make a whole movie about it, but slowly, in the midst of all the Marvel movies that we love, they let those two kind of get together, culminating like thus far right now, as we saw in Infinity War, man. They did the arc. And to pull that off, you need some really powerful talent, man. You need some people who can convince you that you're not watching something very silly. And we got two actors who have done, an actor and an actress, who have done that incredibly well, man. You guys don't want to hear from me. We all want to hear from them. Give it up for our heroes, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. How are you?
Well, look at you.
All right, have a seat. We got so much to do in so little time. And who knows? If we don't get started, some motherfucker might show up, snap his fingers, and half of us will disappear. I want to talk about the history of the flicks. First off, before we go anywhere, I'm going to give you guys major props. I loved Infinity War, but I'm in the bag for this sort of thing, so that doesn't really take much to please me. I'm like, oh, it's in color? I'm there. So, but as a guy who makes films and fancies himself a director and stuff, of course, performance means everything to me. The scene where you guys have to, I guess I should say spoilers, but if you haven't seen this movie, why are you here? The scene at the end of the movie, or toward the end of the movie, where you make the big bad decision, or you make the big bad decision, you guys both make the big bad decision to destroy the gem and stuff, is absolutely heartbreaking. And the death scene made me cry in the theater. And I know you're not supposed to cry at these sort of movies and stuff, but I believed it, man, in a big bad way. And that's something that if they'd made this movie 20 years ago, an actor and actress would not have poured that much into that scene. Because they would have been like, look at all this makeup. I'm not giving it my all. But you guys clearly gave it your all in the midst of what looked like a clusterfuck of a shoot, man, with like things happening all over the place. How important is it to make these superheroes or superhumans human beings first?
I think it's everything. I think that if you can't connect with the people or creatures that you're watching, then you've lost your audience, and you're just left with. It's really funny how much the makeup and costumes just go away, right? I
started feeling. Oh, is this on? Yeah.
Yeah. Jack her up huge.
I started feeling uncomfortable seeing Paul look like this. And I felt far more when we were in Scotland.
So did my children, by the way.
When we were in Scotland, I was just looking at him like, you look so weird with your skin.
I'm sure Jennifer Connelly says the same thing all the time. So wait a second. So there's a disparity then here too, and we got to give out some props. You have to do that acting while wearing all that makeup and stuff. You look like you.
Yeah.
How long does that take? And what do you do while he's in the chair? Are you just like, man, I wish I was acting with somebody that didn't have that much makeup?
I'm like usually at the gym or I sleep in, and then I show up at work and he's halfway through his makeup. My wig process takes a weird amount of time because we put like a bald cap on my head first. I don't know why no one else did it, but I do it, and it takes like
they
an
give
hour
you a bald
and a half.
cap, and then they put
But
hair
only
back on?
here, so it looks like someone just shaved my head here.
Do you think they have to do it, or they're like, let's just fuck with Olsen?
It's for my part.
Is it really? The part in your hair or the part on the screen?
The part of my hair. But yeah, Paul has to be really patient, and they shorten the time, though.
You know what? It's as difficult as getting paid a lot of money to be uncomfortable is. It's not that difficult.
Is that what happens when you're in the chair and you're on hour 4? You're like, man, I want to say something, but I'm so rich.
What you do is, the moment that you feel a little bit punchy about it, you sit and you meditate on the long line of human beings that would like to be in your position, and then it's all fine. You know
my
what
God,
I mean?
so smart, so sweet. What a great diplomatic answer. Well done, my friend. All right, let's go back to both of your origins. You start off in the very first, what many would consider the pillar of the Marvel Universe, Iron Man. When you got I love Iron Man is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's perfect. I've watched it for 10 years, and I watch it repeatedly every year. And I always look for like a flaw. I'm that asshole who's like, nah, this won't be good this time. Each time, it's Star Wars level good. Like Favreau did a great job. When you were cast, did they say, if this goes right, one day you're going to play a robot? Or was it always just a voice gig?
No, it was just a voice. What happened was I'd worked with Jon Favreau in a movie I made called Wimbledon, and he called me up. Thank you. He called me up and he said, "Listen, Paul, I'm making this film called Iron Man, and I need somebody to do the voice of the computer. So I need somebody with no personality at all." And I thought of you, and I was in from that moment on, and then it was a couple of years later we were making the movies, and I'd just be literally phoning in my performance, by the way, just on a phone,
Oh my God, that's right. You wouldn't have to even be on set. No. You wouldn't even have to go in the office.
No, it was like being a pirate. I love being an actor because it's like not having a job.
Yeah.
This was literally like not having a job, and you'd go in for 45 minutes. Everybody was super happy because you'd solve problems that the CG, the acting, the script couldn't solve. They just have Jarvis go, the baddies are coming, and you're done. And so everybody's super happy, and then they gave you a bag of cash, and you would kind of walk off with it going, is this all right? I mean, is it all right?
That sounds like the movie business, or a movie business I've never been in, but I've heard about before.
Oh, it was the best. And then suddenly they started wanting me to show up on set. It was a nightmare.
Like, put this on. Wait, so when you were home recording, when you could literally phone in Jarvis, and you never phoned it in, I like the performance, so it's never like you truly phoned it in, but if you were literally phoning in and you could do it wearing anything, did you ever do Jarvis in the nude?
When you say do Jarvis, probably a couple of times. For temp lines, you understand.
For temp lines. All right, so at what point did you know you would be physically manifested in the series of movies? Did they tell you that early on or way later?
This is a true story.
Okay.
I often lie, but I'm not about to.
Okay.
I had just got done with a meeting with a producer who told me my career was over and that it was done and I should pack my bags and go home. And I kind of stood up to him and said, listen, in this town, actors have second and third acts, and, you should mind your fucking manners. And I walk out, and then my legs give way, because I think maybe my career's over. And I sit down on the sidewalk on the Sunset Boulevard, and I went, wow, maybe my career's over. My phone went. I answered it, and it was a number I didn't recognize. And I went, hello, it's Joss Whedon. I went, oh, hi, Joss. He says, you want to play the Vision in the Avengers? I went, yes, I do. Thank you very much. That's how I knew.
All right, put a pin in that for a second. you probably don't have a vengeful story like that, but how did you wind up in the series? Did they see, what was the movie that has a bunch of M's in it that was your big debut? Martha, Mary,
Martha, Marcy, Marlene.
Was that the movie that kind of kicked it open, or was it?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, I never asked Joss, why me? Because we just had tea. And he told me, I knew I was going in for a meeting. I knew they were introducing new characters. They hadn't announced which characters.
Right.
So I found out while sitting there that it was a character called the Scarlet Witch. And he told me when I went home to look at the comics or online to ignore what she was wearing, that I would not be in a headband or leotard. Because he did.
How disappointed were you?
I was so sad because I love being objectified. It was so disappointing. But so then I really went deep into understanding the core of her, of having this insane backstory of struggling with her power, and it's a metaphor to me for everyone's fear and mental illness, and I just was in love with the backstory so much, and I was like, I hope one day we get to go deep into this, because this is incredible if we get to. And instead I just kind of kept that to myself and love her journey in all the comics, and then kind of allow things to seep through in each film and then see where they want to take it. I have no idea. I never know where they want to go. I just show up.
Professionally speaking, how inspiring. Professionally speaking, is there a sense as an actor, as actors, as performers, as thespians, when you do one of these movies, you're like, ooh, I'm safe. Like when you play tag, you're running around, somebody could tag you, you're out. Like the guy said, your career's over, and you sat on the curb and stuff. But that curb was base. You were safe because you got a call from Joss Whedon. He's like, you're back in. You're like, oh, shit, it's starting all over again. Being in these movies, does it give you, as a performer, a sense of safety where you're like, all right, I'm safe. I got one of these movies. People are going to see it. Now I could go do a bunch of movies. Nobody's going to see, like, a Kevin Smith film. This is a pitch, by the way. What is it? What?
I was terrified because it actually is a different skill to do these movies. To do something like an independent film is more or less where my comfort zone is, something really grounded. But to like have the stakes be so high, and to also be, I mean, I never get to be funny, but like to like everyone's like charming and funny in these movies, and to have the stakes in that, it's like a really weird combination that we don't experience really in independent films. They're usually pretty grounded in something.
And also, these movies, I would imagine, are very PC. Like when you're doing a scene in an indie film, if it's just the two of you having a conversation, you're probably doing it in one day and then moving on. But it seems like these movies, like we did this 2 months ago, and now we're doing the follow-up, which happens in the movie 2 seconds later, 3 weeks after the fact.
Yeah, so you have to really quickly just drop in and get there, and then we try and be like in that moment where we basically get to say goodbye. That was something that we talked about since before we started shooting. We talked about, what does that moment mean? What does their arc mean? Like, we're really trying to ground it as much as possible.
Well, yeah, and then you do it, and they say, the directors come over and say, can you just now just improvise it? And you're like,
oh yeah, they
I'm
told
a robot.
us to improvise that scene.
I'm a robot. What am I gonna? How are we gonna? She's a witch. What are we gonna? And so we figured it out, and more than that, there was a scene where nearly all of us, are standing around talking, and I was looking around. It's really hard stuff to say, you know.
There's a lot of expository gobbledygook.
It's really tricky stuff to sell, and I was looking at Mark Ruffalo, just going, "That's amazing." I forgot my line, by the way. By the time it came to me, I forgot my line because I was just looking at like Scarlett, going, "Wow, that's amazing." And then Don Cheadle chimes in. I'm like, he's amazing. He can just, how is he doing that? And then there's a big pause, and I realize it's because I'm not saying anything. And I go, yeah, it's me. But
everyone's like, we should have left him as a voice.
It's like, yeah, give this one a Mackie. So, but they, it may, you know, it's hard stuff to do. It's a real privilege, I think, for us to get what in our business. As a film actor, you often are not working with the same people again and again and again and again.
Very true.
And to have had this 10 years together, you know, really getting to know people, real life stuff has happened to all of us. And, you know, Lizzie and I have become friends. You've become real friends with these people. And that is, that's been a real privilege, I think. We're real, it's going to sound like a buzzword, but we're really a team. You know, the Avengers, they're really a team. We're friends.
Oh, some of them are. A lot of them are dead now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. When you guys,
No.
You jump into a script for a movie that was marketed because it was such as epic. This is the conclusion of 10 years of storytelling. And look, this is what's going to happen and stuff. When you read the script the first time, did it have everything? Or they're like, we're not going to let you see the end of the movie yet?
So if you wanted to read the full script, for the majority of us, you had to go into a room with no windows, leave your phone at the door, and sit and read it fully. And
that's
these are
ironic,
really
because that's
hard
how most comic book fans read their comic books. So it makes sense that it extended into the real world.
Yeah, so we couldn't like take our time at home or anything like that. They wouldn't give us a hard copy. So I just got my pages, and even my pages had a fake ending and multiple fake things in it. And I found out from the Russos exactly what was going to happen, and it wasn't until we shot it on the day we learned what the ending was. They took us into a van, all of us.
This sounds creepy as fuck.
Yes, we were in a van with air conditioning because it was very hot, and they told us how the movie was going to end, and no one knew. And they're like, now we're shooting it. Go. And we're like, how are we supposed to interpret this?
Feel like fast. Oh my Lord, really? So that's an even more kind of, look, in terms of difficulty, acting's not like laying brick or building a bridge. We all know that. But in terms of acting, that's fucking difficult to be like, this is the penultimate moment of the movie. This is what's going to happen. And we're telling you in 2 seconds before it's about to happen. Please make it believable.
Can I say it's such a relief to get to talk about it? Oh boy.
This is like therapy, man.
Yeah, we usually don't get to say any of this stuff, but you guys have seen it, and it's out in the world. Woof.
Yes, but now what's going to happen is you'll get fired after this panel for opening your mouth. Like, you shouldn't have told them about the windowless room, Olsen. The sequence where you guys have your big moment and stuff, where first you die and then you come back to life and then you die again, which was like really some cruel shit, man. Like, I was sitting there watching this, it was so heartbreaking to watch you have to take him out, and you could feel the pain, and then Thanos is like, fuck that, and all of a sudden it rewinds, and then he does it even worse, man, where he just plucks it out of his head like he was like an insect just going like that.
It was exhausting.
What was it?
It was an exhausting day.
Was it an exhausting day?
Dying twice is exhausting.
Takes a lot out of you. Was he wearing those? Were you and he both wearing ridiculous outfits while you're shooting that scene?
I look like me.
You look like you.
Like Vision.
Okay.
And Josh kind of looks like a guy in a pair of pajamas with a weird hat on, right?
Yeah, with like a helmet on, and he had like hockey gloves on to make his hands look big.
And
he was walking on a platform.
Oh, and he has a big thing with a tennis ball on top, so you know where his head's supposed to be, and he keeps walking into the tree. He keeps forgetting how tall he is, and he keeps walking, catching it, and getting really super grumpy about it.
And you're supposed to be terrified, like so scared. And he just looks like he's in pajamas and a helmet and hockey gloves.
And you've just like, and in acting, you've just like killed the man you love, and then all of a sudden here comes the bad guy to kill him again, and you're supposed to know that, but you turn around, and it's Brolin in pajamas.
I'm like, what are you doing, Brolin? Can't you dress up for the event?
Pajamas doesn't really cover it. It's more like a onesie.
It's a onesie with polka dots on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Some are colored, some are black.
They use the polka dots for tracking to create the eventually what he looks like.
Correct.
Like what we all saw as Thanos, when you watch the movie, you're like, wow, that looks badass, and he's huge and stuff. But you guys didn't see anything remotely like that. You saw Josh Brolin on stilts.
I saw Josh Brolin slightly grumpy because he kept bumping into trees and stuff.
Yeah, and just like, walking. He had so much fun doing this job because he just felt like he was in experimental theater the whole time. And he just thought it was like, he's like, you guys have the best job. I can't believe this is what you guys have been doing. This is like the best kept secret. This is so crazy.
That's pretty awesome. When you guys jumped into the movies, was there any working familiarity with the genre world, with comics, with Marvel? We spoke once at Sundance, and didn't you used to watch stuff with your brother or something? You
Yeah,
were John
I mean, I grew up on all your movies, and those are also all nods to comics.
Right.
But yeah, my brother's a big comic book guy, so every Tuesday we had to go to a specific comic book store for him to get his new editions or his weekly comics, and that was his treat every week. And so I was familiar with the world. It wasn't my personal passion, but I mean, if it's your brother who you want to be like, you learn a lot. But he's a person I still go to, and he also won't let me tell him anything about what's going on.
Oh, he won't hear spoilers? You couldn't tell him about the van or anything like that?
He doesn't want a single spoiler. That's because he's a true fan. He doesn't want to be spoiled. And I think that's what's a shame when we film these movies and people get pictures or there are leaks. I think it just ruins it for everyone because it's so much fun to be surprised in a theater. Or to even just like guess what's going to happen.
I think genre fans are built differently. Like, I'll be honest with you. I knew a friend who worked on The Sixth Sense like a year before The Sixth Sense came out. And he goes, you got to see this movie, man. In it, like, Bruce Willis is dead. Spoilers. And so I was like, get out of here. He goes, yeah, the whole time he's dead. And a year later, I went to see the movie. And then it comes that moment where you realize he's dead. And I just grabbed my wife. I was like, he's been dead the whole time? And she was like, you knew that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. So we can compartmentalize stuff. Like, information is power. It's important to see, like, a picture of a movie being made and stuff. But you can leave it in the background so that when you sit down and enjoy it, it just washes all over you again.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. Spoilers are a big part of this shit. Otherwise, I don't know how we do it. Like, I don't know how we'd live from movie to movie. You guys get to work on the movies, so you see them and you're there all the time. But, like, the rest of us, we're like, what's going to happen? I got to wait 4 months. You're jonesing like a heroin addict and stuff. And I had a heart attack 4 months ago. The only reason I lived through it was, like, I got to see the Avengers when it comes out. And so a lot of us live from movie to movie. But you guys get to do other stuff between, and you also wind up working with people from the Marvel world, but not in character and stuff. You worked with Loki, right? You were with Tom?
Both Tom. We did a movie about Hank Williams together called I Saw the Light. But I also hadn't worked with Tom on Avengers yet.
Oh, that's right. You're in it, but you've never had screen time with him.
Whereas Renner was like my brother figure kind of in Avengers, and then he kind of became that same teammate in Wind River.
Right.
So that was so that was kind of funny. But yeah, it was like every time I had time off and I was doing a different movie, I was just working with Marvel people.
So much so that it becomes confusing where you're like, why didn't Jeremy whip out his bow and arrow in this scene? And they're like, not that movie.
But he could have if he wanted to in Wind River.
It would have
been really, it would have been fitting.
Yeah, but at the same time, none of us want to see that bow and arrow in the real world, so we don't want to see it in the movies either, man. He's got the heavy lifting, poor Jeremy. He's like, the misfit Avenger. Because everyone's like, burn Hawkeye first, But I think they kept him out of the last movie. It means they're probably going to use him in a big, bad way, or at least that's what I tell myself in the next movie. Like, if I was them, I'd be like, fuck you for thinking Hawkeye's the weakest. He saves the universe with an arrow, But that's why they don't let me make those movies. Let's talk about, not the future, because I know you guys don't really, obviously, we just learned that you don't know shit about the movie you're working on until they bring you into a van. Yeah. So clearly we can't talk about the future, but let's talk about what the past. What have the Marvel movies meant to you? You're actors, journeymen, journeywomen. You lie for a living. You play a bunch of different people and stuff. But here, in this moment in time, you are in the movies that are finger on the pulse. It's the zeitgeist. It's like being in these movies is like being in the Star Wars movies in the 70s, or now, as you're in one right now. What is it like to be in the Marvel universe? Like, how often do you deal with it in the real world on a daily basis?
Thanks.
Just act like it was a good question. And
No, it is a good question, and it's I guess in one way I feel like I answered it with it really is a privilege to work with the same people. I mean, the highest standard of filmmaking. I mean, the camera operator on the last movie was just, it was extraordinary to watch him work. His sort of understanding of story. He was making decisions as we were filming. Fantastic. But also, you're also, financially, it also means I don't have to do a bunch of shit that I might not really want to do. You know what I mean? Which has been the first time in my career that I've felt able to do that, because I knew another Marvel movie would come in, right? So that has also been amazing and really freeing as an artist to not have to go and make a move that you might, have to make, because you got to pay the mortgage, whatever, you know.
And it also occurs to me, just in looking at you while you respond, there could be a world where you can move about freely and children don't necessarily go, oh my God, it's the Vision, whereas you walk out and kids must be like, oh my God, it's Scarlet Witch, because you look like you.
I think,
with the exception of the bald cap.
I get the nicest people coming up to me if it's at the grocery store or running errands in LA, and I never feel uncomfortable. It's always just the sweetest, nicest people just saying, I love your movies. And then they run away, they don't want to bother you, but they want to say something. And I actually really appreciate that exchange. I think what gets the odd part is when you have men follow you because they want to sell your picture. And then you're like, why are you following me home, sir?
Right. Don't you know what I could do?
I actually pulled over one day and got out of my car and walked towards his car. I was so frustrated, and he drove away.
It's pretty awesome.
And I was like, oh, I should do that every time.
I'd be pissed scared, if she's coming, where are the rest of the Avengers? They're next.
But also one word about the films and the fans that I didn't get to, which is that these movies are for fans, made by fans. You know what I mean? And I think it is the big difference with these films, and you can feel it on set. When I came on set first time dressed as Vision, Kevin Feige cried. It is important to them.
That is awesome.
And there is something before financial remuneration that they are after. And you can feel that on set and in the rooms when you're discussing character. You can feel the love that the people making these movies, I mean, the directors and writers and the CEOs of the company love these stories, and that has been amazing. And consequently, the fans have been loving the films, and so all you ever have are actually really great interactions with people who are super happy with how these stories that they've loved all their lives are being handled. So that's been great for us, I think.
That is a lot of responsibility. You are playing characters that people have loved their entire lives. You spoke about briefly before, you threw away the line, but it's so true. You're like, I don't get to be funny. You're the emo one, with the dead brother and stuff like that. So what have you done that we haven't seen? Stuff gets cut out of these movies. Is there anything you've ever done you're like, oh, I wish they'd left that in?
No, I never get a funny line that they've cut. They never think I'm going to be funny, so I don't get any funny lines. No, I can't think of anything. I think we kind of edit as we go. If they know that we have to reshoot something, that was 2 weeks ago. They're so on top of it. We were doing reshoots and shooting at the same time.
Really? So you shoot a scene, and then 2 weeks later, if they're like, that didn't work, we want to go a different angle.
We'd have these splinter sets that they would build instead of building the whole location, and all of a sudden Paul's head is now in a totally different place, his head, sorry. There was a close-up shot when we had to do a reshoot of one of the biggest moments.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's true.
And it was literally I was so confused. I was like, how is he doing this right now? We had such a huge set around us, and now all of a sudden we have
it wasn't even a set. We had
that's my
Edinburgh
point.
behind us. And,
right.
Right? It was Edinburgh. And,
you're in a different country.
We were in Atlanta and in front of a green screen, and I was with you kind of going, how the hell is this going to...
And you were so good at it. And I was like, this is a good time to learn. Like, how is he so good at this right now? You matched your performance immediately. You saw an image of yourself from Scotland. Sorry, this is such a boring conversation, but he's really talented. He's very talented.
Let's just watch these actors blow each other for a minute, shall we? Now you say nice things about her.
That's literally the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
I know. I agree.
I thought you were great too.
Thanks.
You know what? You were saying earlier, that is hard stuff where they go, okay, so drop to your knees, she's shooting a beam out of her hands, Thanos is coming, and play your scene. Go. And you're sweating your ass off in these costumes, and you're in.
Sweat's bad too.
Thank you. And suddenly, you really, really want to make it real, and you know that the film isn't going to kind of work if you're not, and it's great to have a fantastic partnership that is only just full of trust and respect, and yeah, it was great. That stuff is tricky, and she's great at it.
In terms of directors, you've worked with a few, but mostly it seems like Whedon and the Russo brothers for you guys, and the Arc of Vision and the Scarlet Witch. What are the differences between a single director and two directors, and how do you get directed by two directors? Who do you listen to?
Well, they're really good at that. They're really good at checks and balances, the Russos. So they're not necessarily they're able to do multiple things at once.
Right.
Like, we literally had 3 sets going every single day, so they couldn't physically be there. So they had their communication down. The biggest difference for me was that Joss created Scarlet Witch and how she would move and how she would look, and so he told me how he wanted her to move. Like, he had the moves in his head, and then we worked with the choreographer, but the Russos inherited this movement that they didn't know what to do with in Civil War, and then now it's like part of the language of the stunt team, and now they've like embraced this odd thing that Joss created and
just
his
because
writer's room.
Just because Joss Whedon a couple of years ago was like, go like this.
Yeah, he was literally it was really like jaggedy, and he had his fingers all funny, and his knees looked like he was hurting himself, but like he had all these funny angles, so we just kind of interpreted it.
Right.
And the Russos were just like, I don't really know how you fight, but you guys are gonna do something here where you're moving cars over your head, so maybe something like this. And it was like totally different than Joss being like, and then you want to do a circle, and then we want to go sharp, and then so that was the biggest difference director-wise. Literally, besides character, everyone's, they want you to own your character and pitch in. They're both great directors with actors, but that was the biggest difference for me.
For me, the biggest difference was being able to play one off against the other and say, I really want to do it like this. And he goes, I don't want to do that. Really, Joe? Because Anthony was saying, you know what I mean? Just lie and get what you want.
Dividing and conquering.
It's fantastic. Wow, really? Because Anthony said it was a brilliant idea.
That's why I never want to work with you. You're evil. All right, so instead of me talking, we should probably open it up to the audience. Yeah, I imagine some folks have some questions they want to ask and stuff. Microphone there. There may be more, but those are the two I'm definitely aware of. Let's hear what you have to say. We'll start with you right there to the left. What's your name, man?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Hi. How are you?
What's your name?
I'm Silvio, but I come from Mexico, so sorry, my English is not perfect.
No worries. Give it up for our friend from Mexico.
Hey!
So real quick, I just want to say, Paul and Elizabeth, thank you for being here. Real quick, 2 years ago, I had the chance to meet Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth, and it was a dream come true. And I always said to myself, if I just have the chance to meet Elizabeth Olsen, my life will be complete. So thank you for being here. Really, I appreciate it. It means the world to many of us.
Oh, cool.
So my question is, Elizabeth, I know before you were introduced to the MCU, there were strong women in the MCU portrayed by Natalie Portman, Hayley Atwell, Gwyneth Paltrow, but it was not until you appeared that you were the second official heroine in the MCU. So ever since you came in, there was little to none merchandise of you, But now with Infinity War, there are figures of you, like this one. So now little girls can walk into the store and purchase figures of you. So how do you feel about being a strong, intelligent, independent character and woman who is in these movies, and you are a role model to little girls all over the world, and you are slowly breaking the stigma and status quo that this is an only men club?
Oh boy. I mean, Scarlett did a lot of that also before me,
yeah, of course.
and so I watch her, and I honestly am like in awe of how she handles herself in all of these scenes with her action, the intensity she brings, and it's really about just being just as powerful or strong as any other person or alien or robot. I don't know. When I was a little girl, I always thought I was one of the guys, and then I realized, no, I'm just kind of similar. Like, I'm not one of the guys, I'm a girl who gets to be a girl, but I like similar things as the guys, and that's okay. And so it's more of like, let's stop having like all the divisions, and let's stop, being like, oh, but this is a person who likes sports, this is a person who likes theater, therefore they are all these things. Like, all that is weird and annoying and dividing everyone. So it's nice to just always have inclusion, no matter what it is, whether it's race, gender, sexuality. So
continue inspiring little girls all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Over to you. How are you? What's your name?
Hi, I'm good. My name's Sydney. I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Right on. Give it up for Sydney.
This is actually a graduation present from my mother, who's sitting right here. She's so amazing. I love you guys so much. My question's for Liz, and I want to ask you, can you explain and tell me what your favorite Feed Me Friday photo that you have posted on Instagram? And I like some of these. Yeah.
Give us a little background. What is a Feed Me Friday photo?
So I joined Instagram like a little over a year ago, kind of reluctantly, so I try to have a sense of humor with it. And there are a lot of paparazzi photos that are very unpleasant of me eating. And so I decided to just make Feed Me Friday collages. And my favorite one is the one that I find most hideous, and it's eating nut butter at a farmer's market. And I'm like, that tastes, I like that one. Let me try another one. And I'm literally making these faces in the photo. And they're just terrible photos. And I think they're hilarious.
We love a mean queen. We love you.
Happy graduation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's your name, sir?
My name's Callum.
Give it up for Callum, everybody. Go ahead, Callum.
So after the heartbreaking events of Infinity War, when are Scarlet Witch and Vision ever going to catch a break? Because they seem to be, blown up or dissolved or have their brothers killed or, it's never really, fair.
Snitches end up with stitches in ditches. We can't answer those sort of questions on the grounds that if we happen to have jobs, that we will be fired from them.
Fair enough. Oh, also, Dryden Voss was brilliant.
You're very sweet. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's talk about real quick. You're in 2 movies this summer, 2 big movies, man. You're in Avengers and you're in Solo. They're shot miles apart, I'd imagine, right?
No, I was flying from Atlanta to a couple of times I still had some purple makeup on the back of my ears when
you went to the Solo set. Good Lord, like double timing it right there. It's the same company though, right? It's all Disney.
Yeah, it's all Disney. I mean, they're pretty separate, and Ron Howard really took care of me as he has done throughout my career.
Yeah. It wasn't a situation where they were like, you got to keep the mustache, man. Like, Let's jump over to this one. How are you?
Hi, I'm Hannah. Nice to meet you.
Hannah.
I also recently graduated from UC Berkeley.
Another graduate. Give it up for her, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. So my question is for both of you. For me, I find a lot of inspiration from on-screen superheroes like Wonder Woman and like your character Scarlet Witch and Vision I used to work in IT, so you're my guy. But I was just wondering what real-life heroes that you look up to. For me, I really look up to my mom, and she gives me a lot of inspiration. So I was wondering if either of you have someone, like a real-life superhero that you wanted to just sing their praises right now and let us know about.
What a great question, man. Who do you love? Who's your heroes?
There are so many people in my personal life that have just kind of adjusted my way of thinking or inspired me to be blunt and state your opinion and know when to say no, and that no is a full sentence and all those kinds of things. But then the moment I started saying that once, and Chris Pratt responded after me, he said first responders, and I felt like an idiot because every time now I see a fire truck go by, I'm like, God, thank God. Like, you guys are here. So now I always just want to say first responders after Pratt said it. You were there. And I was like, oh, that's such a better answer.
Yeah, and it's a hard question because it's one that you don't want to sound mawkish about, you know, and like overly sentimental about. Watching my wife give birth is you have, but you feel like you just know, you know, how it's going to come across to some people, but that is the truth. But also a sort of less obvious one is a woman in my life called Shosh. And Shosh was a psychoanalyst who really took me in and sort of saved my life at a moment that I really needed saving. And so she's, yeah, I suppose she's a real hero to me in my life. It gave me a vocabulary with which to talk about my feelings that I did not have that. I was not given that vocabulary in my childhood, and in my young adulthood, she gave it to me, and I will forever be thankful for it.
Thank you.
That's that.
How are you? What's your name?
Hi, my name is Cora.
Give it up for Cora, everybody.
My question is, so you mentioned earlier about fake scripts, and I was wondering, like, what scenes and endings happened in those scripts that we never got to see?
Do you remember any of the fake stuff that they tried to mislead you with in the script pages? Like something like Vision finds out Darth Vader's his father, or something like that.
How did you know? You know what? I'm dyslexic, and I read the fake script. They kept trying to get me to read the real one, and I read the fake script 3 times, which altogether is about 18 hours of my time. So after 18 hours of sitting in windowless trailers, reading something I was never going to be making, I totally gave up. So frankly, I can't actually remember.
I can't either.
The truth.
We also, we had really very little idea as to what was going on the other planet. The people who were in Wakanda, no one really knew what was happening over there.
Oh, they didn't tell you what was going on with Tony and Spider-Man and
they explained it, but when they
Strange.
explained it, it was very confusing to me.
By the way, that's another really funny thing is that when I first, because in England, you asked a question earlier, in England in the 70s, comic books didn't seem to be such a big thing for us. And so when I was first doing these films and I was reading them, I was like, when's Iron Man going to come in there? And where Captain America? They've got like Tony and this guy called Steve. Who are these people? I mean, it was the most confusing.
Sometimes they just use last names, and sometimes they use first names, but it changes throughout the script. And you're like, oh, who's the first time reading one of these scripts was really like trying to like draw pictures and diagrams and trying to figure out who's who.
Not for us. This is our religion. I know these characters more than I know my daughter's birthday. So let's jump over to. You good? Was that good? All good.
Sorry.
Over here. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Christina.
Hey, give it up for
Hey,
Christina.
Christina. I was looking over there. You're not Christina. Hi, Christina.
My question's for Paul. I've noticed in a lot of your interviews, you say snitches end up in ditches. And I was wondering, what is the origin of that saying?
Well, there's the American version is snitches end up with stitches, right? I don't know where that comes from. Snitches end up in ditches is just, it's like a gangster thing. If you know, or like if my kid ever sees me open a bottle of wine before 5, and I'm like, don't tell your mum, snitches end up in ditches. So it's kind of like that, I guess.
Thank you.
What about on a Sunday?
Sundays, that's a free day. That's like lunchtime.
This is an important panel because you're getting parenting tools at the same time. All good?
How to get your children to lie to your wife. Very important.
Yay? Okay, over to here. How are you? What's your name?
Hi, I'm Samantha.
Give it up for
Hi,
Samantha,
Samantha.
everybody.
So my question's for both of you. It's like a two-parter question. The first part is, if you could be any other character from the Marvel movies, who would you be? And if you could do one move from your character, in real life, what would you do and what would you use it for?
Wow.
All right, so the first one we'll do first. Who could you play in these movies if you weren't playing your characters?
I think Valkyrie's super fun and funny. And I think Tessa Thompson's killing it. So I wouldn't want to replace her, but I'm loving everything she's doing. It's one of my favorite newish characters.
What about you, Paul?
I don't know. I think I'd like to do a bit of Scarlet Witch. You know what I mean? Do a little bit of this.
You've been
stuff
sitting across from her for all this time going, I could do it better. I would make the headpiece work.
Oh, that's how you're going to do it? Okay. I would have made the hairband work.
What? And the second question was, if you can use any of your powers in the real world?
Yeah.
Wow.
Would you use?
I wouldn't use any of Scarlet Witch's powers. I think it makes her go crazy. She eventually goes insane, you guys, because of her powers, and I want to be in this world insane. I don't want to lose my mind.
I would like to be able to change my density and fly so that I could avoid, lines at TSA. Because you think about it, that's taking 2 hours. 2 to 3 hours on the other side. You miss passport control. You miss all of it, right? So door to door, you're losing 3 hours on your journey. So I think flight would be awesome.
What a first world problem life you lead.
Absolutely.
Let's jump over here. What's your name?
My name is Tegan.
Tegan, give it up for Tegan, ladies and gentlemen. Tegan, Vision and the Scarlet Witch are yours for the next few minutes. Go.
Elizabeth, I wanted to thank you so much because the Scarlet Witch came to me at a time in my life that was really difficult, and your character is a role model for me. And I wanted to ask you if you could have, on-screen, banter with any character, who would it be? Because I personally want to see you interact with Bucky Barnes.
But he would just be so serious. He's such a tough guy. I kind of want to play with Spider-Man. Right? He's cute. Right? And he's really funny. I think Colin's killing it. I think he's so funny, and his timing is on. Yeah. But Sebastian's cool. I'm not throwing him under the bus.
He's more than cool, if you know what I mean.
He might be the opposite of cool. Hot.
You're saying you both might be short on dinner conversation, I think, in that very serious-minded
you and Winter Soldier would be a very serious scene, unless they were like, look, we want you guys to cut loose, just do your version of what is that joke? The Incredible, what was it? The Aristocrats. If they got you guys together and they're like, just do your version of the Aristocrats, that would be a fun scene. But generally speaking, you're probably right. They put you together, it'd be very serious and shit.
Yeah.
And somebody's
Which
dead.
would be funny, actually. Just two people being so deadly serious, given if you put them in a funny circumstance.
writing poetry together.
Yeah,
and things.
there are many ways you can put two serious people and make it comedy. I don't know how to do that, though, because I'm not a writer.
Good?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well done, man. And then we jump over here. What's your name?
My name is Gabrielle.
Hey, everyone give it
Hi,
up for
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle.
So, despite Tony having a large part in Vision's creation, we haven't actually seen a lot of on-screen interaction between Tony and the Vision. So I was curious what your thoughts were on their relationship. How does the Vision feel about Tony? What do they talk about?
Wow, that's a really good question, because I've kind of got two dads, which kind of, I got kind of Mark Ruffalo as well, so it's a really peculiar situation. It's like a sitcom, actually. But what do we talk about? I think it became very clear that I wasn't a butler anymore. The moment Vision turned up, and he's kind of omnipotent but really naive at the same time. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they discuss.
I just don't think Robert wants to be on set with Paul. I think that's what's really going on. I think he said something, and I think that's why he was written on a different planet.
Oh my God, you could be right.
I know.
He's been avoiding me.
Yeah. Ever since Ultron.
If that's the case, he's avoiding everybody because he has a lot of scenes where he's by himself in a helmet and stuff like that. He seems like, of all the people I think I'd want to be, it would be him because A, he gets like all the fun lines, and B, he barely has to be there, it seems like. A lot of the times it's the CG effect taking on the Iron Man role. But yet, even though he may not be the CG effect, his presence is so felt. He is so much the spine of the Marvel Universe. You can't imagine one of those movies without him. When I watched Infinity War, I saw it in New York at like a press screening. The moment when he gets stabbed, I was literally sitting back and I went, no! And a bunch of critics, like when they reviewed the movie, were like, some asshole screamed no during the... Jumping over to here. Are you done? Are you good? Yes, we jump over to here. What's your name, man?
My name is Mark, and I'm from Seattle.
Right on. Give it up for Mark, everybody.
First of all, I'd just like to thank all of you for being here today and making this happen. I know, it's a kind of an interaction between, the fans and you guys, but I just want to appreciate and acknowledge that you guys are here.
Thank you very much.
And my quick question is, if you maybe have a quick, little story or behind the scenes while making Infinity Wars, each of you, if you have a favorite moment.
My favorite moment repeated almost every single day for maybe a couple months, and it was sitting on a tent on set instead of going back to the trailers, and it would just be, a lot of us would hang around instead of go back to the trailers and just hang. And I got to watch Mark Ruffalo and Paul Bettany basically perform their version of The Odd Couple every single day. And also I'd like tune them out because sometimes it would become annoying. But like, it was so entertaining in between scenes to just watch you and Ruffalo like try and out-funny each other. And I think that's my favorite moment. All of those moments.
Yeah, it's hard to be specific because the moment you get specific, you start getting people into trouble because a lot of the things are totally unrepeatable. But that said, I think the hanging out on set, I can't tell you, most people go back to their trailers. And in these circumstances, because we're all become real friends, there's a lot of hanging out on set and just, making each other laugh, and then also getting into, furious debates over the state of the environment and stuff, which is really funny when you're purple. It's really funny when you catch yourself holding a very serious political discussion whilst purple. It's hard to take yourself seriously.
We got time for one more, and then we got to let these good folks go. Thank you, sir. Right here, you're going to take us home. And what's your name?
Hi, I'm Callie, and I am way too short for this mic.
All right, everyone give it up for Short Kelly right now.
Hey.
So my
You can move the mic if you need to. You don't have to stand on your tiptoes.
They're attached, so I can't.
Oh.
What's on
Somebody
your
help her out, for heaven's sake.
What are
She's got
those?
things in her hands. There you go. Well done. A hero right there.
My hero.
Those are so cool.
Thanks. So my question's actually for you about Wanda's powers. So we've seen them go through a lot, from a lot of mind control to now she's firing lasers, and visually they've changed. So how much input have you had over that?
I don't know. I think the only input that because what they're doing right now is she's so powerful, we have to figure out how to limit her in order to tell story, because she could just blow everyone up like she did in the comics. She could do a Thanos if she wanted in her own way and just say like no more mutants.
Well, she couldn't say that yet.
Say that yet.
But in a couple weeks, she will be able to say that.
Knock on wood. So that's why we focused a lot, I think, on Ultron with being able to alter mind states as a power, and now it's become pretty physical mostly, and also being connected with him and his stone. But the thing that I do take a lot of ownership of with her power is like I'm obsessed with the movement, and I have a dance background, and I love movement, and I love the woman who choreographs with me. So she and I rent out dance studios, and we make movements that mostly like are too long, and they don't want to use them in a fight because they take too long. But we have so much fun creating the visual aspect of what her powers are and where the source is, and this ball that we pretend to throw around, and it's just all, we make it up, and it's so much fun. It really is playful.
It would be amazing to walk past that room and watch two women just going like. Anything else? Last chance.
Nope, thank you.
All good? Give it up for her, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the audience for bringing to life some characters that we've all dearly loved, for putting your all into it, for making it matter, man. A lot of us in the room, you look out there, there's definitely some kids out there, but you see a lot of adult faces, and adult faces means that, like, this stuff meant something to us as kids, and we get to enjoy it later in life. A lot of people have to give this stuff up back in the day when they grew up because they didn't make movies about our favorite comic book characters. Now they do, and it's an awesome responsibility to play two fictional characters that have like 30, 40, sometimes 50 years of expectation from the audience behind them. You guys are crushing it, man. Give it up for Elizabeth and Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, man. Enjoy the rest of Comic-Con. Give it up for the Avengers. I'm sorry, stay there. We're going to take a photo with you guys in the background. We're going to use you real quick. Here we go.